The planning process is iterative in nature. A project manager does not complete the planning process and then move on to other activities within the project, never to return. Throughout the project manager and the project team will be returning to the planning process as often as needed. In particularly large projects, the project manager should include the stakeholders to obtain buy-in of the project deliverables. Including the project stakeholders not only accomplishes buy-in, but provides shared ownership of the project. This is important because shared ownership allows the customer to recognize the value and the intensity of the project work and processes. In addition, the project manager should include stakeholders to ensure that the project deliverables are in alignment with what the stakeholders and the project team are expecting to receive. Within large or highly technical projects, planning can also be known as rolling wave planning. Rolling wave planning focuses detailed planning on the immediate activities of the project rather than on remote, future activities that may be affected by the outcome of the direct project results. The issues further downstream are addressed in rolling wave planning, but in high-level detail, rather than the specifics the pressing focus is on. This is an example of progressive elaboration. The scope statement is a document that describes the work and only the required work necessary to meet the project objectives. The scope statement establishes a common vision among the project stakeholders to establish the point and purpose of the project work. It is used as a baseline against which all future projects are made to determine if proposed changes or work results are aligned with expectations. The scope statement may, with adequate reason, be updated to reflect changes in the project work. The project manager must use human resource and leadership skills to guide and lead the project team to project completion. In some organizations, the project team may be assigned to the project, while in other organizations, the project manager may have the luxury of handpicking the project team members. A work breakdown structure is an organized collection of project deliverable components to be created by project work. The project manager cannot complete this activity alone. The input and guidance of the project team is required as they are individuals closest to the work and will be completing the actual activities within the project phases. The work breakdown structure will offer major input into planning, estimating, and scheduling processes throughout the project. Risk can be both good or bad. Generally, risk is a perceived threat or opportunity to the completion of the project. The initial risk assessment allows the project manager and the project team to determine what high-level risk may influence the feasibility, resources, and requirements to complete the project. The initial risk assessment may also steer the project toward a different solution. The network diagram, also called the project network diagram, illustrates the flow of activities to complete the project and/or the project phases. It identifies the sequencing of activities identified within the work breakdown structure and determines which activities may be scheduled sequentially versus in tandem. Time and cost estimates are completed within the planning process. Time estimates reflect the amount of time to complete each activity within the work breakdown structure. Once the estimates are mapped to the project network diagram, an accurate estimate of how long the project will take to complete may be created. Cost estimates can be calculated a number of different ways, such as through top-down estimates, bottom-up estimates, or the dreaded informal hallway estimates. All estimates should identify a range of variance reflecting the degree of confidence of the estimate, the assumption the estimate is based on, and how long the estimate is valid. The critical path is a chain of activities within the project network diagram that cannot be delayed without delaying the project end date. There can be more than one critical path, and it is possible for the critical path to change. The other paths within the project network diagram have float or slack. Float or slack means these paths may be delayed to a point without delaying the end result of the project. The project schedule is dependent on the creation of the work breakdown structure, the project network diagram, and the availability of resources. Based on when the resources, the project team, and other required resources, such as equipment and facilities, are available, the schedule can be determined. In many instances, the project must be scheduled from a time constraint. With constraint of a deadline enforced on the project, all activities must be scheduled from the project's start to its completion to ensure the project can finish on time. The project budget is the cost of the project, cash flow projections, and how the money will be spent. The project budget should cover the cost of the team's time, facilities, and all foreseeable expenses. Cash flow projections are needed to alert management as to when money must be available for the project to continue. risk assessment is an in-depth analysis of the project risk through qualitative and quantitative analysis. Qualitative risk analysis calls for the probability and impact metrics. Risks are typically categorized as high, medium, and low. Quantitative risk analysis is a more in-depth study of the identified risk. This technique calls for a risk matrix based on probability and impact. Quantitative analysis also uses simulations and decision tree models. The risks are analyzed for both positive and negative impacts, entered through the risk matrix, and then planned accordingly. Risk may be accepted, avoided, mitigated, countered, or planned for through contingencies. Risks are also assigned to risk owners who will monitor thresholds and triggers. The quality management plan details how the project will map to the organizational quality policy, for example, ISO 9000 or Six Sigma specifications. The plan will provide specifics on how the project team will meet the quality expectations of the organizational quality assurance program. The quality management plan also sets the guidelines for how the project will adhere to quality control mechanisms and ongoing quality improvements. As part of planning, the stakeholders' expectations and requirements must be analyzed. The stakeholders' expectations must be documented, prioritized, and balanced between competing objectives. Managing stakeholders' expectation is crucial to project success, so having a complete understanding of their expectations is mandatory. Based on the scope statement, the project scope should not change unless it is absolutely necessary. The project manager and the project team should create a change control plan that will specify how the project scope may be changed, what the procedure to change the scope is, and what the requirements are to make a change. In large or high-profile projects, the project manager may be working with a change control board to determine if changes should be approved or factored into a project scope. The organizational plan determines who does what. Specifically, it documents the roles and responsibilities of the project stakeholders, including the project team, project sponsor, project manager, functional managers, and vendors. The organizational plan also defines the reporting structure within the organization. It is tightly integrated with the communication plan. The communications plan determines who needs what information, how they need it, and when it will be delivered. The plan specifies team meetings, reports, expectations for reports, and expectations of communication among team members. The communications plan must account for all needed communications within the project. Consider a project manager of a high-profile project called Project XYZ. The project manager requires the project team to report their progress on Project XYZ every Tuesday in the project status meeting. In addition, the team members reporting their status, they will also need to update their work electronically through the project management information system. These communication requirements are defined in a communications management plan. This formal document guides the project execution and control through the project phases. Senior management must approve the plan prior to execution. The project plan's primary purpose is to communicate the assumptions, decisions, and risks to the involved stakeholders. In addition, the project plan documents the schedule, cost, and scope as baselines. Planning is an iterative process. The result of planning is to allow the project work to begin. Once the project has reached a collective state of agreement between the project manager, management, the project team, and the customer, the project is officially allowed to begin.